Hello, everybody. Welcome to Snakes and Such podcast, hosted by High Elevation Exotics. My name is Ian Silver. This is Seraphim, and today we are going to be talking about ball pythons and why they stop eating, how long can they stop eating for, and some options for you to try to get them back on feed. And this is something that if you've ever had ball pythons or even your friends have had them, it's one of the things that happens. Not with all of them, but it is very common among ball pythons to go off feed for months at a time, weeks. They're picky. There's lots of factors that go into this. So today we're going to discuss some of that. And this right here, Seraphim, is actually our problem child when it comes to not eating. He is a Petco purchase and hasn't eaten since I've had him. I've made a few mistakes along the way that I'd like to share with you guys, things that I would suggest not doing if your snake's not eating. And yeah, we'll kind of dive into that. But they're notorious for this, so it's not something as humans we tend to worry because we're so fixated on having to eat 3 meals a day, or we're always thinking about food. And for them, they're built to go quite a long time without finding food in the wild, or even their metabolism is built differently from us. They can go a long time without food. So we're going to dive into some of the reasons why they go off food. And actually, there's kind of a weird fact. The longest any snake has been believed to go off of feed was 21 months. And of course, that was a ball python. So, hopefully this will give you some sort of peace of mind if your ball python has gone weeks or even a few months without eating, that they can bounce back. Obviously there's going to be some circumstances where they don't, and we'll kind of get into that sort of thing. So one of the reasons ball pythons make good pets is because they're typically very docile, small enough to handle safely, as you can see here, but not fragile, and temperature and humidity are fairly easy to achieve once you dial them in. And, there's an amazing and wide array of colors and patterns, or as we call them in the hobby, morphs. But one of the reasons that it might not make a good pet is if they don't eat, and it's something that can be a little stressful for most people. I'm not going to lie, it stresses me out that he doesn't eat. But I know what can happen. I know it's normal. So, he still poops and everything, and he acts pretty normal. So this is going to be fun. There we go. Seraphim, what are you doing, dude? All right. So we'll go ahead and get into this. So you'll see, like I said, ball pythons can go months. That scared me. I thought he was going to bite my face. Let's take the hat off in case he decides to do that again. So yeah, they can go months, of course. And this doesn't mean that you should sit back and let your pet starve. There's things that you can do potentially to help figure this situation out. If he gets a little too crazy, I'll put him back. He's very active, which is a great sign. So how long can a ball python go without eating? As I've mentioned recently, you can see them going for quite a few months before they eat, and that gives you time to figure things out and kind of try a few different things. And of course, this is assuming that there's nothing else going on with your pet's health and that all the husbandry needs are met. Lack of appetite is a big red flag when it comes to illness and disease in snakes. So it's definitely something that you want to rule out if you can. Take them to a vet or just pay attention to them. Look at their stools. But like I said, even healthy, well cared for snakes will go off feed, just like Seraphim here. I'm sure that his situation wasn't as good when he was at Petco, but I think he's doing a lot better now. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. So he's very interested in this microphone. So one of the reasons, obviously, is parasites and disease. And illness is like the most pressing reason why your ball python might not be eating. It's something that you definitely need to check out. There's symptoms, diarrhea, discolored scales, wheezing, clicking sounds when they breathe, some sort of discharge orally. That's something you should take them to a vet right away. And if the only symptom your snake is displaying is a lack of appetite and they appear otherwise happy, this issue will require a little bit more deliberation. There might be another underlying issue, and stress is one of them. I keep my snakes in a snake rack. All the temperature and humidity is the same. It varies a few degrees from the top to the bottom, but generally speaking, everything is set, and that's it. He is my only snake besides a rescue that we just took in 2 days ago, who hasn't eaten. And we have 11 or 12 now, I believe. So, they've all, and other ones were said to have not eaten before, and I was able to figure that out. But yeah, it's usually better to wait it out until you see other symptoms, or it's been several months and you've tried everything else. And then there might be something going on. Also, some people notice damaged teeth in their ball python's mouth and worry that they are the reason for the loss of appetite, but this is pretty unlikely. They damage their teeth occasionally from striking hard tank decorations, glass, or simply when eating their food. Another reason I don't keep them in an aquarium. If you're going to keep them in an aquarium, and this is kind of a hot topic right now, it seems online. Yes, I agree, a realistic environment is best for them. But if you don't have the space, and also if you're just going to keep them in an aquarium where you're walking by all the time and they're scared and they don't feel secure, that's no life for a snake. They want to feel confident and secure in their enclosure. So it's really important to give them lots of hides. And I like to take my snakes out every day almost. So. And like with the whole broken tooth thing, it can be an issue if it causes some sort of oral abscess or infection, and then, go see a vet. So stress is probably the most common reason your ball python is not eating. Fortunately, it can also be one of the easiest things to remedy. Like I said, lots of access to hides. If you pay any attention to how they live in the wild, they have lots of places they can hide, whether it's foliage or in termite mounds, et cetera, et cetera. So I think at the minimum, I have one hide in most of mine. Some of them like two, some of them don't like any hides. But you have to pay attention to each ball python, each animal that you have, and see what they like. Seraphim is very shy. I cover the front of his tub as well. He doesn't like to be bothered. And this next topic is minimize handling. And then this is something I'm not sure. Maybe it's something that'll work for you, but to not handle them much if they're not eating. And I don't take him out that much. This was kind of, special for the video as well, to show off that although he's gone without food, he's not super skinny. I think he's lost, 20 grams, which, it sucks, but it kind of is what it is. And he's active. He poos, he pees. He struck at me the other day, so he's pretty healthy, besides the fact that he's not eating. Also, another thing you want to do is limit music and loud noises. Snakes don't have ears like us, but they do sense loud noises and vibrations. So if you have a snake that's not eating, don't put him in your kid's room, or don't put him, my reptile room, I vacuum once a week. Sometimes I'll let it go even longer. That's because a lot of the animals I have in here can be sensitive to noise and vibration. My chameleon, the geckos that I have, especially when I'm bringing new animals in, I want to make sure that they feel comfortable. So I limit the amount of loud music and noises. And then another thing you can try to do is limit feeding frequency. Instead of offering them every week when they don't eat, which is the mistake I made. I was stressed out in the beginning, and I was like, he'll eat. I'll try to offer to him over and over. And that will create a really bad habit. So I could have made this situation of Seraphim not eating much worse if I had just let it happen the way it's happening. And, approached it a little differently, I think we might be in a different situation. But now I'm going to try every 10 to 14 days versus every week. And it gives them time to be hungry and recover from potential stress of the last meal attempt. They don't like something being shoved in their face and like trying to be force fed, So don't make that mistake that I made. And that's just me being transparent and honest. It's something I did. It's a mistake I made, and I'm learning from it. So another thing is going to be husbandry, and that's super important. If your snake's temperature and humidity is too high or too low, it can cause a lot of issues besides just not eating. Improper shedding, behavioral issues. A lot of people use lamps. I'm not a big fan of lamps. Generally speaking, ball pythons get their heat from underneath, so belly heat. So if you can keep a heat pad on a thermostat, don't put a heat pad under your tank, or even don't put a heat pad in the tank. It needs to be underneath. And depending on the thickness of your substrate, if you have paper towels or other things, it's going to vary. I keep their hot side. I'm looking at my thermostat right now. Their hot side is around 90. Sometimes it'll go up to 92. It kind of fluctuates, give or take a few degrees in temperature. And then their cold side is 75 to 80, sometimes 82 if it's a hot day. But they have that range of area to go from hot to a colder side. And that really helps them feel comfortable along with their hides. So like I said, always use a thermostat with any heating element so that the temperature doesn't get too high. They will burn themselves. They will sit there. Some of them are smarter than others, but I've seen some nasty burns on ball pythons' bellies because they don't move, or people will have a heat rock in there. If you have a heat rock, throw it away now. Throw it away now. If you want to use a lamp, so be it. Make sure it doesn't get too hot. Make sure if there's a rock under it that the rock doesn't get too hot. Use a thermal gun to get an accurate reading. Sometimes even your thermostat might not be right. So it's something that you need to check. And another reason temperature and humidity is, really important is they're ectothermic. Some people say cold-blooded, but they're ectothermic animals, which means that they need an adequate temperature to digest. If it's too cold, their body and metabolism will begin to slow down. And no snake will eat if it's unable to digest its food. They're smart. They understand that. It's a survival instinct because any food that isn't digested runs the risk of rotting inside of the snake and making it sick. So also, reason number 4, we'll call it reason number 4. We had disease, stress, temperature, husbandry. Reason number 4 we're going to go into is seasons. Many ball pythons have sort of an internal clock that tells them to stop eating when winter is approaching. Right now, we're in the middle of in the summer, so it's not necessarily that time. And, in the wild and with many captive people, they will go through a period called brumation, which is similar to hibernation. They will become inactive and stop eating for a few months. After brumation, you'll see that most snakes will take at least a few meals, but some may begin fasting again as the breeding season commences. And some people breed all year round. Some people start breeding in November, October. It's just kind of whatever is working for you, where you live, what your temperatures are. Right now, I have a few females that are being paired. They've eaten. One of them seems to kind of be going off feed. She's showing some signs of potentially being gravid. And yeah, you just got to be careful, especially the males. If you're pairing a male to multiple females and you're not giving them a break or they're not eating, you got to stop. You got to make sure that after they pair, and especially if you're seeing locks and copulation, as we call it, you're going to want to make sure they eat, give them a few days to digest. Some people will recommend not pairing, pairing the female if she has shed. After every shed cycle, pair her up. Other people will do like feed them on Tuesday, pair them on Friday, leave them in for a day or two. If you don't see a lock, take them out, do it again. If your snake is healthy and happy, has a consistent weight is eating, use your discretion. And then females that are ovulating and males that are eager to find themselves ovulating females, eager to find ovulating females, usually aren't interested in eating. I have some good eaters. The guys in there, after they, meet up with their lady friend, they're hungry. They're ready to eat. And then many healthy captive pythons only eat for a few months out of the year due to seasonal changes. So there's a lot of factors. Typically speaking, it's not something to freak out over. And then it's just something you got to watch. You got to pay attention to their behavior and just go from there, honestly. So let's see. Reason number 5. Reason number 5 is they're picky about their food and feeding techniques. So if you've done all the issues, if all the issues above have been taken care of, you just have to realize that they can be picky and finicky about how and what they want to eat. It's especially true for wild-caught ball pythons, which generally we don't see a lot of that. Also, check out Dave Kaufman's video, that documentary he just released about ball pythons in Africa, where he picked up a few wild-caught ones. Well, I guess they're technically their parents. They would find the mother and the eggs, or find a gravid female, and they would bring her back to the farm, and the eggs would hatch there. So I don't really know what you would call that. Wild-caught mother? I guess it's a wild-caught baby, because it's not a CBB, captive bred baby. But yeah, check out that documentary. It's really good. But luckily, like I was saying, there's so many captive bred ball pythons that the issue is becoming slightly less common as to why reason ball pythons aren't eating. And as you can see, like, it might be kind of hard to see, but his spine is slow. It's like kind of showing. I mean, he's gone, I don't know how long he went without me, but he's gone 2 or 3 months. So, but back to the whole wild caught. We don't really see too many wild caught ball pythons. It doesn't happen as much. And then, when you first purchase your pet, look for certain things. How often is it eating? Ask them. If you get it from a reputable breeder or someone who knows what they're doing, not a big box store like Petco or PetSmart, which sometimes I have a tendency to see certain guys in there and I'm like, I got to get you out of there. Say what you will. This one was beautiful to me, and I just didn't want to see him in there. So this is what I'm dealing with now. But, ask them, when's the last time it ate? Or usually if you buy on Morph Market or a local breeder, they'll tell you, hey, they're eating frozen thawed or live every 10 days, every 7 days. This is the last time they ate. If they keep track like I do, they keep track of pooping, shedding, all those good things. Like I said, they'll tell you what it is. And it's a big one when it comes to live or frozen thawed. I feed all frozen thawed, and I'm getting all of them who used to be on live to eat frozen thawed as well. It takes a while, but some ball pythons are actually afraid of live prey, especially captive bred ball pythons, and they can do a lot of damage to them. So you got to be careful leaving a rat in there. I recommend frozen thawed. If you're going to do live, I've seen some pretty bad stuff where someone has so many ball pythons and they feed live that they left a rat in there for 3 weeks and it ate halfway through a snake. The snake survived, but rats can be nasty little buggers. So, that's another thing. And also, like, how and when are you feeding it? This is another big thing. Are you feeding it in the middle of the day? Are you feeding it with the lights on? How are you feeding it? Is it warm enough? My snakes, I feed them at night. I have like a small light on just so I can see. That way I'm not getting bit. But they're usually out moving around the front of their tubs. I also pre-scent my room, which is something I would suggest, where you would put the rodents into the warm water and let that sit near your snake rack or in the room for about 30 minutes to an hour. Make sure the temperature on the rodents are good. They smell that. They'll all be sitting there at the front of their tubs. And typically when I have my tongs and my rodent, as soon as I open that tub, they're right there. They hit it, take it back in their hide, whatever they feel comfortable doing. I don't usually have to do too much work. Sometimes I'll wiggle for a moment. My bigger female, Big Mama, who I'm not going to show right now. She's kind of nesting and don't want to disturb her. Sometimes I'll leave in for her. It'll be a frozen thawed, and I'll leave it in with her, and I'll come back and it'll be gone. She seems a little more privacy. So it just is what it is. And like I said, I do rats frozen thawed better. I think rats have better protein than mice. You know, picky ball pythons may even turn up their nose if you offer the same type of feeder from a different rattery. Like if you offer the same thing over and over, sometimes they will refuse it. I don't have that issue. I've heard of people, having to switch it up every once in a while just to get their ball python to eat, whatever that may be. So yeah, when are you feeding them? How are you feeding them? What are you feeding them? That stuff is really, really important and just something to dial in. I've got it dialed in, and I don't feed any of my larger females. I don't feed anything over a small rat. I don't see the point in it. All of my animals have healthy weight on them. I don't want to overfeed them or underfeed them. And that's just something that I've learned and some advice I've been given by somebody locally. That's what they do. You're not getting much reward back for the price you pay for an extra large rat. My 3,200 gram female, she'll eat small rats sometimes. Sometimes she won't. So it just it is what it is. Each one's different. Another reason, I guess we could say this is reason 6 or 7, messy enclosure. Make sure you clean up their poop and their shed and their urates, the poop, the pee. It's just, they don't want to be sitting in that. Sometimes if it sits there for a day or two, if you've been gone or if you're out of town for a week, it's going to be okay. But this is like talking long term. Typically, if you go out of town, you want to feed them a few days before you leave so that you could make sure there's no regurgitation. Maybe they'll poop or pee and you have time to clean that up. Spot clean when you can. Keep fresh water, fresh bedding, all that good stuff, And another thing is to aid them through shedding. I will completely saturate their enclosure or mix water in with their substrate if they're shedding. And I'll even soak them in a tub for 30 minutes just to help them out, ease them into that shedding process. So, but I would say cleanliness is kind of rarely considered as a factor as to why they don't eat, but I would throw it in there, So going into the shedding thing, like we were talking about, that is another reason they won't eat. Sometimes they won't eat when they're in shed, going into shed, or just came out. And you can usually tell if they're going into shed. They do this thing where they go blue. Some people call it zombie eyes, where their eyes will look kind of like they have cataracts or something, just blued and gray. And that's kind of a sign. That is the sign that they're going into shed. And the shedding process lasts 7 to 10 days, generally speaking. You'll also notice a dull coloration. Like he just shed not that long ago, and he's bright, bright, bright. He's got a beautiful color on him. So yeah, I would just say offer proper humidity levels, soak your snake, do some of those things. And, once they've finished shedding, offer food a few days after. So that's kind of all I can think about, besides maybe some little things like the prey temperature. You want to make sure that the temperature of the frozen thawed rat or mice is warmer than room temperature. They have, like, you can probably see it. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but they have heat sensing pits. Let's see if I can get them to right there. There you go. So right on the front of their little snoot, they have heat sensing pits. So, go beyond just simply thawing it in a waterproof bag. Let it sit in the hot water. That's what I do. And then I kind of dry it off a little bit so that no substrate gets stuck to it. And I feed in my tubs. If you have a snake that's in an aquarium or a tank rather, vivarium, bioactive, whatever you choose, you can feed it in there. I would say this is another thing that's subjective. I would probably recommend taking it out when you feed it, but then you risk the whole thing of moving it after it's eaten. So it's kind of going to be subjective. I just feed in my tubs. They're comfortable in there. They like it in there. And, so with all that being said, start with some of these suggestions, and I am no expert. These are just things that have worked for me, things I've learned over the years, and I'm just getting back into keeping pythons. I did for a while, and then life happened, and I was moving a lot. But I'm back into it, getting into the breeding slowly. And I would say try these things, different sizes of rats, mice, um, frozen, thawed, pre-killed. Frozen thawed is going to be the best way to go. If you can get everything on frozen thawed, eventually it's a good way. And, live prey is going to be a last resort. And like I said, make sure that you supervise and make sure the rodent doesn't bite them. Wiggle the prey near them. Try feeding them during nighttime hours or with the lights off. Don't take them out of their enclosure or their hiding spot to feed them. I think that's kind of subjective to a certain degree. I feed them wherever they're at. It just works for me that way. Some people will leave them like overnight in a paper bag in their enclosure with the prey, and it'll kind of like force them to eat. I feel like that's kind of stressful, but yeah. So if you followed kind of all the things I've said and you've tried them all, and don't try them all at once, spread them out. If one thing doesn't work in 10 to 14 days, try something else. But the most important thing is to not cause any additional stress to your snake by trying to force or overcoax them into eating. It's just stressful, and it's a mistake I've made many times. I'm going to give Seraphim here some time. I'm going to give him 2 weeks before I even try it again, and hopefully he'll resume eating whenever he's ready. But like I said, watch out for signs of parasites, disease, stuff like that. And just don't stop trying, but make sure you're not forcing it. So that kind of concludes today's episode, where we talked about ball pythons and how dang picky they are. They can be picky snakes, but some of the best, if not the best and most popular pet snake. So yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Shout out to everybody who has been watching the channel, supporting the Instagram. Things are looking good. So I really appreciate it. More videos like this to come. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you want us to cover, or me to cover. I say us, but I guess you can't really do too much, huh? But yeah, guys, God bless you, and we'll be back soon. Peace.